Hello, and again, welcome to Bit Depth. I'm Santiago Ramones.
And I'm Jonathan Edwards.
Yeah, thank you for jumping right into that.
You're welcome.
I normally do the thing. So we're talking about Swamp. It is the sixth, seventh track. I don't even remember.
Seventh track, yeah.
On Bloom.
It's got to be seventh.
Yeah. So I chose you because you like horror things, and not that this is necessarily a horror track. No. But it's one of the spookier things on the album. Thoughts, questions, and everything.
No, definitely very contemplative kind of piece. And I don't know, you've definitely got the, kind of swamp feel down where It's just a little bit kind of thick like molasses, but still flat. And so it's rather than a motorboat through the swamp, it's more of a floating along on a canoe.
Sure.
But it's more to me, it still kind of had more of that morning, kind of horror feeling, like the before sunrise kind of moment. Okay. As opposed to the sunset. It was just bright enough, but at the same time, it was just a nice little journey. Yeah. Each time I'd listen through it, it was kind of with some of the sounds. Why did you choose some of the sounds, especially in the higher end? Some of the bell sounds.
So it actually kind of started with that bell sound. And the reason for that is that you've watched Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yes, I have.
It's actually a different tone that happens in this one piece in Avatar, but it's played with a kalimba, I'm pretty sure.
I think I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah. And there's also an episode of Avatar where it takes place in a swamp. Yeah. And so when it takes place in Avatar, it's more of a home feeling. But I feel like a kalimba especially can sort of create a different kind of feeling.
Yes. Yeah.
And so with that bell kind of tone and just minor chords and everything, it just created the sound of mystery. And so I that was kind of the grounding of it, beginning with that. This isn't a kalimba sound, but the kalimba sounding sort of thing. Yeah. The other parts, so this is where I had.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about those voices in the background.
So it's like those effect kind of things. So something like this. Those are more horror type sounds, and I just had those in it came with a pack or something in Ableton.
Gotcha.
And so there's just kind of spooky swells types of things that just kind of come in and out. And I was because I was sort of forming some of the sounds, and I need something to just add eeriness. Yeah. And so there's those swells, but then there's also those are digital bugs.
I was, for me, anytime I hear something like that, it's angry crickets is what I always kind of think of.
Yeah. Yep. And there's more bugs that come in and out throughout.
Nice.
But those are kind of more setting the tone. And then I kind of mentioned this in a previous one or a later one. I don't remember the order in which I recorded these anyways. But normally I'm pretty proud of my bass lines. Yeah. But that's actually just a drone through the whole thing. Yeah.
And that's where I brought up the kind of molasses, but still just flat.
Yeah, exactly.
No, and it was definitely anytime I hear just impressionistic music, just I do always kind of wonder how much time you may have spent in swamp environments where just experiencing
none at all.
Okay, cool. Because you did a nice job kind of capturing the kind of placid appearance, but the constant churning just right there on the edge of that drone. Sure. Because when you have a swamp full of bugs, the drone becomes that kind of a low note. Yeah. Because it's more about the rarefaction, the waves in the air that combine from all the bugs. And, it's the kind of thing that when we get to VR stuff someday, I cannot wait to do the music. Yeah, the kinds of music things where it's literally just patterning the sounds at the right time in three-dimensional space creates its own note. That'll be fun. But so it kind of had that spatial feel.
Well, a funny thing is that, like, in a way, it's not the sounds of a swamp as I know it, but really, since I've never truly been to a real swamp, I've been through like Florida a little bit, but it's more like what the media's idea of what a swamp sounds like.
The impression of an impression of a swamp. So that's excellent.
Stuff like that Avatar episode or other media that takes place in swamps. This is your idea of what a swamp is like. Or there was like an expansion in Fallout 3 that took place in a swamp. So all that sort of stuff is like, this is your idea of what a swamp is, even though you've never actually
And when
been
I
there.
said like the kind of morning rather than sunset kind of feel, that like just before dawn, there's a word for that, but I'm forgetting it. But I think it was Demon Souls, one of those, one of the Souls games where it was just brutal and they put a swamp in there. It was like, oh, that's gonna stick in my nightmares.
Exactly.
Yep. Still. And so it didn't quite have that kind of like doom kind of feel, more just the natural swamp kind of just like, it's a little creepy and a little bit creepy, but it's not out to get you.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not going to die immediately, but just slowly over time.
Yeah. Mentally, as it should be.
And then also to evoke the sounds of a swamp. Very like kind of natural percussion instruments. And so shakers, bongos, natural instruments that are made out of like animal skins and wood and whatever else.
Seed pods. All the seed pods.
And that's kind of what created the percussion and kind of drove the whole sluggish feel, even though they're not playing very sluggishly.
No, it's certainly not slow or anything else. I mean, it's a very steady kind of feel, but that's, to me, that's part of what
that boat feeling.
Yeah. And not as, it's not like crawling through the swamp on foot, and it's not like going on a motorboat. It's definitely in that like, walking pace. And then it's not Left for Dead.
Kind of the last two things that I feel like really make the track this.
But that was the actual kalimba type sound?
Oh, that's a marimba.
Oh, marimba.
And so, again, wood instrument that...
Samples or...
One that came with Ableton.
Gotcha.
The thing about this album is I started this album in like 2013.
Oh, yeah.
And it ended in like 2015. And so a lot of it was just experimentation. And so I would just take what I had and do what I could with it, which is kind of the nature of a lot of composition.
Most of what we do.
Yeah.
Professionally and personally, let's just try some things within the limits of what's available and see what happens.
Right, exactly.
And then once you find a groove with it, you keep going because, most of the time it is more important to, just see the end of a project than it is to
perfect it.
Endlessly perfect it.
Yeah.
The cycle.
Right, yeah. There is no perfect, just getting slightly closer to it.
There is no perfect, just the endless madness approaching it.
Yeah. And then finally, the choir sound.
I will always love that sound, just from because that Ableton, in just my experience, Ableton, FL Studio, and GarageBand back in like 2005 to 8 kind of range had a similar like choir kind of, I don't know, it's like there were phasers built into it, but it was more like just natural interference in the voice.
Right.
And like it's just been so much fun to break computers with that sound for a few years, and then computers got better. But
Right. Well, the other part is that like, since it's not a real choir, that's kind of part of the eeriness of it.
Yeah.
And so there's like voices and people hiding in the shadows of the swamp or whatever, but it's like they're not really real. It's just what you think is in there.
and the will-o-wisp idea kind of thing
exactly.
of just the, even if it's not actually just, any kind of light, it's not like exploding gas or anything else. It's, just when you're in a dense enough environment, forest-wise and everything, especially towards sunset, the light doesn't have many ways to get to the ground.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times you'll see like that random patch of light, and that's the one place a shaft of light could get through.
Yeah.
You just don't see the shaft of light. You just see that, like, what is this glowy thing off in the distance? And it's like absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
At the same time, the human mind is very good at coming up with all sorts of crazy things to terrify you at night and during the day. But
Yeah, and so it is kind of, again, going back to the idea of this isn't a real swamp. It's your idea of what you think a swamp is, and the creepiness within, and the fact that just the natural world is going to come and kill you. And maybe swamps are that dangerous, and maybe they aren't. But this is kind of what that represents.
Yep. Well, and there's nothing like being alone in nature, and especially in a place where, standing in the wrong place during the day or the night, something could eat you, something could bite you. It's always a chance. It's just probability.
Right. Or it's perfectly safe, and you're just making up all the things, all the dangers in your own head.
No, it's like the childhood walking into the other room at night and like seeing all the like hands reaching out from places, and like, was that a shadow? And it's like, no. Yes, no, who knows? Experience is very complicated.
Yeah. And so this is one of the pieces where I kind of intentionally tried to create a feeling rather than kind of just experimenting. I was specifically looking for things to create a feeling.
Yeah.
And hopefully
I think you did. Yeah. No, that would fit very nicely in a lot of, like, especially John Carpenter, because everything, like, everything with that creepy vibe and that like digital feel to it.
Sure.
Just John Carpenter, gave us what, 30, 40 years of that so far.
Yeah.
So, but no, definitely had that and I rewatched a couple of Carpenters in Labyrinth and some other stuff recently. So right now I have that kind of like 80s, 90s stuck in my head. Yeah,
thank you for doing this with me.
You're welcome.
Plug your stuff.
At the moment, Instagram and YouTube at Tune Select Go or Power Cycle Music on Instagram and there, and also live sessions, productions on YouTube and Instagram again. And there's more, but we'll get to that eventually.
Number one. And
No, it's we'll post it all in the stuff.
Oh, heck yeah. Stuff
in the doobly doo.
And now here's Swamp in its entirety. You can find everything that I do on my website, santiagoramones.com. I make music. Bloom will be available on August 8th, streaming everywhere. Put it on in the background, put it on your workout playlist, show it to your friends so you can all enjoy it together. You can also buy the thing and get bonus content to get a bit deep into the emotions you can feel with it. I also make music with Power Cycle, an experimental electronic trio. Our first completely improvised album, Too Many Damn Cables, is streaming everywhere. More to come from Power Cycle in the future. To support this podcast, leave reviews, comments, tell your friends about it, and buy my music, because by supporting me, you're supporting the podcast. I always end the podcast with my 3 things. They shape my life philosophy. Those 3 things are: love never fails, it's going to be okay, I might be wrong.